Why did the Admiral's voice tremble when he read her call sign? The morning sun burned white over the tarmac of Naval Air Station Virginia, heat rippling off the concrete as F-18s thundered past the control tower. The air smelled of jet fuel, sea salt, and tension. Admiral Charles Donovan stood with his hands clasped behind his back, the posture of a man who'd spent 40 years commanding people who feared him more than they respected him. His medals shone like small accusations across his chest. Order, discipline, obedience. That was his creed. He didn't like surprises, and the woman walking toward him that morning was exactly that. She wasn't supposed to be here, not without his authorization, not without clearance, not without a dozen signatures and 2 weeks of notice. Yet there she was, Captain Emily Hayes, her Air Force flight suit pressed, her boots scuffed but clean, her eyes unreadable. She moved like someone who'd already said goodbye to fear. A few of the younger mechanics glanced up as she passed. Someone whispered, "She transferred from Nellie's, thought she was grounded." Another replied, "Grounded pilots don't walk like that." The Admiral waited until she stood directly in front of him, her shadow cutting across his shoes. "Captain Hayes," he said, voice low and firm, "you are not authorized to report to this base. This is a naval installation. You will remove yourself immediately." She didn't answer. For a long, quiet second, the sound of turbines filled the gap between them. Then Emily reached into her flight suit and handed him a sealed envelope marked Top Secret, for command eyes only. Donovan tore it open. The signature at the bottom made his stomach tighten. Pentagon clearance, temporary reactivation, special authorization. He looked up slowly. This clearance came from the Office of Tactical Development. His tone cracked on the last word. "Who the hell are you, really?" Her eyes didn't flinch. "Someone trying to stop a mistake from repeating itself, sir." Before he could speak again, a group of Navy SEALs entered from the North Gate, fresh from a classified recovery op, loud, joking, still high on adrenaline. They were the kind of men who filled a room with their confidence, until they saw her. It happened instantly. Laughter cut off mid-sentence. The noise on the tarmac fell into a hush that no one could explain. The tallest of them, a scar running under his left eye, froze mid-step. His jaw slackened. He whispered almost to himself, "No way, that's Ghost Falcon." The Admiral turned sharply. "What did you just say, Chief?" The SEAL didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on Emily, not in confusion, not even disbelief, but something closer to awe. Slowly, he raised his hand in salute. The others followed, one by one, until even the Admiral could feel the weight of whatever history lived between them. Emily's posture softened. She hated this part, the silence that always came before people remembered what she'd done and what she'd lost. "At ease," she said softly, her voice calm but edged with sorrow. The Admiral's confusion deepened. He glanced back at her file, the one that said presumed KIA Kandahar sector 3 years ago. He remembered the report. A pilot who'd gone down fighting 5 enemy aircraft alone. Classified. No recovery. No ejection. A ghost story used to motivate rookies. "Ghost Falcon," he repeated under his breath. "That's supposed to be a myth." Emily's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Sometimes myths just need a place to land, sir." The Admiral's face turned pale. "You're telling me you survived that mission?" Her gaze drifted toward the runway, where an F-22 Raptor sat half-covered by a tarp. The paint was scorched, the tail number scrubbed away, but one word still shimmered faintly on the fuselage. "Ghost." "I didn't survive, sir," she murmured. "I just didn't die." For a moment the Admiral forgot the chain of command. He forgot the paperwork, the ranks, the walls between their worlds. All he saw was a woman who had come back from something no one should have survived, and the quiet, unhealed wound that followed her every step. "That aircraft is off limits," he said finally, trying to regain composure. "It was decommissioned after the Kandahar incident. No one touches it." Emily's hand rested lightly against her thigh. Permission to fly, sir. Denied. His voice cracked louder than he meant. You're out of line, Captain. You don't get to just walk in here and... She cut him off gently. Someone's using our tech, Admiral. Our own stealth drones. I traced the signal myself. It's the same prototype system we lost 3 years ago. If we don't stop it now, those drones will reach U.S. airspace before nightfall. The SEAL with the scar stepped forward. Sir, if she says she can stop it, you should let her. Ghost Falcon saved my team over Kandahar. I'd follow her into hell again. A pulse of silence rolled across the group. The Admiral clenched his jaw, staring at Emily like she was both a miracle and a threat. He could have said no. He should have. But sometimes command isn't about control, it's about knowing when to let history write itself. Fine, he muttered. You have 1 hour, and God help you if you're wrong. Emily nodded once. God already tried. She walked toward the F-22 slowly, her boots echoing against the hangar floor. Every step brought back flashes of the night that had nearly killed her, the burning sky, the last words of her wingman over the comms, the heat flooding the cockpit. Inside, the jet smelled of oil and ash and memory. She brushed her hand along the throttle. It was like touching an old scar. Her fingers trembled for just a second before she strapped in, closing the canopy above her. The radio crackled. Control tower, Ghost Falcon, you are not cleared for takeoff. Her reply came calm, steady, familiar. Copy that, taking off anyway. The Admiral stared at the runway from the tower. She's insane, he muttered, but his voice was half admiration, half fear. Engines screamed. The Raptor rolled down the strip, dust and sunlight exploding behind it. For a heartbeat, the entire base went silent as the jet lifted off, a streak of silver vanishing into the clouds. Inside the cockpit, Emily breathed shallowly. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady now. Altitude climbing, systems green. The world below shrank until it looked almost peaceful. But she knew peace was an illusion. Control, she said into the mic. This is Ghost Falcon. I have the signal, 10 miles east. Multiple heat signatures, looks like drones, at least 12. The Admiral's voice came through tight. You engage on my command, Captain. Understood, she said. Then after a pause, quietly, you might want to tell the families at Norfolk to stay indoors. The radar beeped once, twice, then chaos. 12 red dots converging. Enemy drones, the same model that had ended her squad 3 years earlier. She could almost hear their voices again through the static. Eagle 2, we're hit. Falcon, break right, break. Silence. Her hand tightened on the stick. Not this time. Missile lock, fire, explosion. 1 drone gone, then another, then 2 at once. On the ground, the radar screen blinked like a heartbeat gone mad. Jesus, someone whispered in the control room. The Admiral leaned over the mic. Ghost Falcon, you're outnumbered 10-1. Break off and return to base. Negative, came the calm reply. You grounded me once, sir. You won't ground me again. Her F-22 darted through the sky like lightning, rolling, diving, climbing through bursts of flame. The clouds lit up with fire. Each explosion painted the world in fragments of memory. By the 7th kill, smoke trailed behind her right wing. Warning lights blinked red. Her breathing grew heavy. Emily, eject, the Admiral barked. That's an order. Her voice softened. With all due respect, sir, not this time. She pulled the jet vertical, sunlight flashing off her canopy. For a second, she was flying straight into the blinding white above, where sound couldn't follow and the past couldn't reach her. Then she cut engines, dove. The final drone tried to climb but couldn't match her speed. She locked on, fired. The horizon bloomed in light. Silence. Static hissed across the control channel. Ghost Falcon, respond. That's an order. Nothing. Seconds crawled. 1 minute. 2. Every man in that tower held his breath. The Admiral's hands gripped the console until his knuckles went white. Then faintly through the static, target neutralized, returning to base. The room erupted in cheers. Even Donovan let out a shaky laugh that sounded like disbelief. When she landed, smoke curled from the Raptor's wing. The SEALs ran toward her, shouting, clapping her back as she climbed down. She didn't smile. Her face was pale, almost translucent. The Admiral approached her slowly. "You just saved thousands of lives," he said. She met his eyes. "No, sir, I just finished what I started 3 years ago." For a moment no one spoke. Then the scarred SEAL stepped forward, eyes wet. "We thought you were gone forever." Emily gave the faintest smile. "Ghosts never really leave, do they?" The Admiral turned away, hiding the way his throat tightened. He'd seen many things in war: bravery, cowardice, loss. But what he saw in her wasn't any of those. It was something quieter, harder to name. It was the kind of strength that doesn't shout, the kind that simply endures. And as the sun dipped below the hangar line, casting long shadows across the tarmac, the legend of Ghost Falcon came alive again, not as a story whispered by men who missed her, but as a truth standing in front of them. Some wounds never heal, some debts never fade, and some women, they don't return for recognition, they return for closure. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. Why did she look like she was saying goodbye when everyone else was cheering? The base buzzed with adrenaline that night. The hangars glowed under white floodlights. Engineers moved like ants around the damaged F-22, and voices echoed across the tarmac. But Captain Emily Hayes stood still, helmet in hand, watching the glow fade from her jet's engines as if she were watching a friend breathe their last. Admiral Donovan had ordered a full debrief within the hour, yet part of him hesitated. He could see from her eyes that this wasn't victory for her, it was something closer to penance. The men didn't understand. They saw a hero. He saw a woman haunted by ghosts that refused to stay buried. Inside the briefing room, the air smelled of coffee and sweat. The SEALs lined the back wall, still in their dusty uniforms, arms folded, watching her like she was the only thing holding their world together. Emily sat at the center table, posture straight, face calm. On the screen behind her, footage from the mission replayed: the drone formation, the engagements, the final dive into the sun. The room's fluorescent lights flickered once, as if the building itself held its breath. Donovan pointed to the data feed. "You took out 12 hostile drones without AWACS support, without wingmen, without clearance. That's a miracle, or suicide. Which one was it?" Emily didn't answer immediately. She rubbed her thumb against the edge of her flight glove, a small nervous tick that betrayed what her voice wouldn't. "I didn't go up there to die," she said finally. "I went up there to make sure no one else did." One of the younger SEALs, barely 25, frowned. "Ma'am, those drones, they were ours, right? Modified versions." Emily nodded. "Our tech, foreign control. Someone breached Project Sentinel's encryption. 3 years ago, during the Kandahar strike, we lost a prototype control chip. I thought it was destroyed with my team." She paused, eyes drifting toward the window. "I was wrong." The Admiral folded his arms. "You said you traced the signal. To where?" "Offshore," she replied. "A cargo vessel operating under a Panamanian flag. It's masking a weapons lab, coordinates transmitted from the same frequency that shot me down." The room went still. "So this wasn't random," the scarred SEAL muttered. "It's unfinished business." Emily's lips pressed together. "For all of us." When the meeting ended, the others filtered out, talking in low voices, glancing back at her. Donovan stayed behind. He waited until the room emptied before he spoke. "Captain," he said quietly, "the men worship you, but I need to know what's really driving you." Her eyes lifted slowly. "You think it's revenge?" "I think it's something close to it." She gave a hollow laugh. "You ever wake up at 3 a.m. and hear the sound of a radio that isn't there? The static, the panic, The orders you couldn't follow because you were already falling. He didn't answer. That night, she continued, I ejected at 30,000 feet. My chute tore open halfway down. I hit the desert hard, broke my ribs, my wrist. I watched the horizon burn for 3 hours before they found me. And when I woke up, they told me everyone else was gone, that my signal never made it through, that my team died waiting for a command I couldn't give. Her voice wavered, barely audible. You tell me what drives that. The Admiral said nothing. He just nodded once, not out of agreement but out of respect. Get some rest, Captain, he said finally. You'll need it. But she didn't rest. At 200 hours, she sat alone in the hangar, staring at the F-22 under repair. Technicians had stripped half the panels off, exposing the engine like an open wound. The hum of machines filled the silence. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal tag, half-melted, scorched black. It was all that remained of her wingman's dog tag. The edges had fused together in the crash, sealing the name forever unreadable. She carried it anyway, a promise in her hand. Can't sleep either, a voice said from behind. She turned. It was the scarred sealed Chief Ryan Hale, his uniform unbuttoned at the collar, a paper cup of coffee in his hand. Didn't mean to intrude, he said, leaning against a tool chest. Figured you might need company. None of us could sleep after Kandahar either. She gave a faint smile. You were there. On the ground team, he said. Extraction unit. You were the one who cleared the air corridor for us. Without that, we'd still be ghosts under the sand. Emily exhaled slowly. Then I guess we're both survivors. Hale nodded, then looked at the half-disassembled jet. They say you flew that thing like it was part of you. It was, she said softly, until it betrayed me. He frowned. What do you mean? The systems glitched before I went down. Controls froze for 6 seconds, long enough for the enemy to lock on. I thought it was battle damage. Now I think it was sabotage. Hale's face hardened. From our side. She didn't answer. He didn't press. After a long silence, he said, if you're planning to go after whoever did this, don't do it alone. Her voice dropped. You still follow orders, Chief. Only the ones that make sense. They exchanged a look, brief, wordless, but full of understanding. By morning, the rumor had spread across the base. Ghost Falcon was back in the sky. Reporters were already calling. The Pentagon wanted a full report. The president's staff requested a photo. Emily ignored all of it. She spent the morning running diagnostics on the data she'd recovered from the drone wreckage. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, decoding patterns, tracing frequencies. Then she stopped. A signature appeared at the bottom of the code, a string of numbers she hadn't seen in 3 years. Her heart froze. It was a call sign. Not hers. Raven 09. Her old squadron leader, the one she'd watched vanish off radar the night of the Kandahar mission. She whispered his name under her breath, Colonel Mason Cole. He was supposed to be dead. But the code told another story. The signal came from the cargo ship she'd mentioned, now docked in international waters off the East Coast. Whoever was running the rogue drones had military training, access to classified systems, and knowledge of Project Sentinel. And only 3 people ever had that clearance. 2 were dead. That left 1. Admiral Donovan found her in the command room hours later, eyes red, hands shaking as she typed. Captain, you look like hell. Sir, she said without looking up, the drones weren't random. Someone inside the system reactivated Sentinel's failsafe, and they used Cole's credentials to do it. He stiffened. Cole's dead. She met his gaze. No, sir, he's alive, and he's sending a message. Donovan took a slow breath. You're saying your former co-staged this attack. I'm saying someone wanted me to see it. He studied her for a long time. Then he leaned closer. If this goes up the chain, it'll bury careers, maybe yours included. She shrugged faintly. I already buried enough. Donovan rubbed a hand over his face. Damn it, Hayes. You realize what you're asking for. You want to intercept a ship in international waters with no authorization, no backup, no support. Yes, sir. Why? Her answer came without hesitation. Because he's not just a trader, he was my mentor. The Admiral looked at her like a man caught between duty and something heavier, conscience. Finally he sighed, You'll need a team. I already have one. Behind her the hangar doors slid open. Hale stood there with 4 SEALs, the same men who'd saluted her the day she arrived. None of them needed orders. Their faces said enough. Donovan exhaled. You understand this never happened. Emily nodded, understood. That night under a moon sharp as glass, the team boarded a Black Ops transport headed east. The engines hummed low, steady, like a heartbeat. Emily sat near the rear, helmet resting on her knees. Hale leaned toward her. You sure he's alive? She looked out the window, the ocean below a silver mirror. If he is, then whoever used his name wants me to believe he is. And if he is? She hesitated. Then I'm flying into the ghost of the man who made me what I am. Silence filled the cabin. After a while, Hale said, You know you could have stayed grounded. Let the Navy handle it. She smiled faintly. The Navy would bury it. I'm here to face it. He nodded. You really think one mission can fix what happened back then? Her eyes softened. No, but maybe it can stop it from happening again. As the transport descended toward the dark horizon, the crew switched to blackout mode. The ocean spread beneath them, endless, cold, indifferent. Somewhere out there, a cargo ship carried answers wrapped in deception. Emily felt the weight of the dog tag in her pocket, the chill of memory against her palm. For 3 years she'd lived with silence. Now the silence was breaking. Control, she whispered into her mic, voice steady but low. Ghost Falcon en route, beginning descent. And far below, in the dark waves, a radar pulse flickered, as if something had been waiting for her all along. Because sometimes the past doesn't haunt you. It calls you back. Why did the radar flicker before they even reached the ship? The ocean stretched endless beneath them, black glass shimmering under moonlight. The transport's engines whispered through the sky, running silent. Inside, the cabin glowed dim red, the color of secrecy. Captain Emily Hayes sat strapped in near the ramp, her helmet visor up, her thoughts somewhere far away. She could feel it, that strange stillness before something irreversible. The kind of silence that doesn't calm you, it warns you. The SEALs checked their weapons methodically, their movements precise, controlled, almost ritualistic. Chief Ryan Hale sat across from her, face shadowed under the red light. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. He'd seen that look before, the 1,000-yard stare of someone walking back into their own grave. 10 minutes to target, the pilot's voice crackled through the comms. No radar contact yet, but there's interference. Could be jammers. Emily leaned forward. Jammers confirm presence. We're in the right place. Hale gave her a dry look, or the wrong one. The corner of her mouth twitched. You still scared of ghosts, Chief? He shrugged. Only the ones that shoot back. The men chuckled quietly. It broke the tension for all of 2 seconds. Then the pilot's voice cut back in. Visual on the target, bearing 060, looks abandoned. Emily rose, walked to the small window and looked down. The cargo vessel floated like a shadow in the sea, no running lights, no signal, no crew visible on deck, just darkness. And yet something in the way it drifted felt intentional. Drop point, she asked. 500 meters off starboard, the pilot replied. Do it, she said. The rear ramp opened. The wind howled in, cold and sharp. Emily clipped her harness, stepped toward the edge. Hale followed, his hand briefly brushing the side of the door as if to steady both of them. You sure you're ready for this? He asked. She didn't look at him. I've been ready for 3 years. They jumped. The ocean swallowed them. Cold, silent, infinite. They surfaced quietly near the vessel's hull, a black wall rising above them. The seals moved like shadows, attaching magnetic grapples and ascending hand over hand up the steel. Emily climbed last, her breath even, controlled, though her heart thundered in her chest. At the top, Hale peered over the edge, clear. They moved in. Boots landed soft on deck. The smell hit her first, oil, rust, and something older, abandonment. No crew, no voices, only the creak of metal against the sea. Then a sound faint, rhythmic, a low hum, mechanical, coming from the hold below. Emily signaled silently. The team fanned out. Hale took point, she followed. They descended through narrow stairwells, flashlights cutting thin beams through the dark. Each corridor felt older than the last, coated in salt and dust. Halfway down, Hale stopped. "Ma'am," he whispered, pointing. On the bulkhead, a faded insignia, painted years ago but still visible. Project Sentinel, Air Superiority Division. Emily froze, her stomach tightened. She brushed her glove over the symbol. "They moved it here," she murmured. "Moved what?" "The whole program." They continued deeper, reaching the main cargo bay. The hum grew louder. Then they saw it, and for a second no one breathed. 5 autonomous drones, identical to the ones she'd fought 2 nights ago, suspended from the ceiling, lights flickering faintly on their undercarriages. The walls were lined with servers, screens looping streams of code, power cells glowing pale blue. "This isn't a smuggling ship," Hale muttered. "It's a mobile command unit." Emily stepped closer. "No, it's a graveyard." Because there, at the center of the room, stood a control chair. Worn leather, scorched edges, and on the headrest, a helmet. Her helmet. The same one she'd lost the night of the Kandahar crash. Her pulse stopped. "How the hell?" Hale began. "Someone recovered it," she whispered. Her hand trembled as she lifted it from the chair. Inside, the visor still had a crack running across the left side. Blood had dried along the edge, her blood. Then a voice behind them broke the silence. "I was wondering how long it'd take you to come back for that." They turned. A man stepped out from the shadows, unarmed, calm, wearing a faded Air Force flight suit. His hair was streaked with gray, his expression unreadable. "Colonel Mason Cole," Emily said, her voice flat but cold. "Captain Hayes," he replied softly. "You look exactly like the last time I saw you, defiant and exhausted." The SEALs raised their rifles instantly. Hale moved between them, his aim steady. "Hands where I can see them." Cole smiled faintly. "Easy, Chief. You wouldn't last 3 seconds if I wanted you dead." Hale's finger twitched on the trigger. "Try me." "Enough," Emily barked. Her tone froze the air. "Stand down." The men hesitated. She stepped forward, eyes locked on Cole. "You're supposed to be dead." "So were you." She exhaled sharply, every muscle in her face tightening. "You staged your death. You left us to burn." Cole's voice softened. "I did what I had to do. You think that crash was an accident. You were meant to die, Emily. We both were. Sentinel was never just a drone project. It was a prototype for autonomous warfare. The moment we proved human pilots weren't needed, we became expendable." She stared at him, struggling to find words. "You could have warned us," she said finally. "I tried," he said. "The system was already compromised. Command sold the data to private contractors. They needed a scapegoat. Our deaths gave them clean cover." Her jaw clenched. "So you turned rogue." "No," he said, almost pleading. "I turned real. Everything you destroyed 2 nights ago, those weren't enemy drones. They were ours, reclaimed, reprogrammed. The only way to expose what they've done is to show the world how far they've fallen." Hale's voice cut in. "By attacking your own people." Cole looked past him to Emily. "By reminding them who built the monsters they now serve." For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the drones above. Then Emily said quietly, "You think you're saving the world, but you're just justifying your own ghosts." His expression softened. "You used to believe in me, Emily. You used to believe in something bigger than orders." "I still do," she whispered. "That's why I'm here." The sound of safeties clicking echoed around them. The SEALs tightened formation. Hale's eyes flicked between them. "Sir," he said to Emily, voice low, "we can end this now. One shot." She shook her head slowly. "No." Cole's lips curved. "Still the moral compass. That's what I admired most about you." He stepped closer, hands open. "You have no idea how deep this goes. The Admiral you trust, the Pentagon itself, they're all tied into this. Walk away now and I'll prove it to you. Stay, and you'll die for a flag that forgot you." She didn't blink. "Maybe, but at least I'll die clean." And then alarms. A high-pitched whine filled the room as the drones above powered on, lights flickering from blue to red. Hale shouted, "Contact! They're activating!" Cole backed away toward the far terminal. "You shouldn't have come here, Emily." She lunged forward, tackling him as gunfire erupted. The room flashed with chaos, red light, sparks, the sound of metal tearing. One drone dropped from its harness, spinning wild before exploding against the bulkhead. "Go, go, go," Hale yelled, covering the retreat. Emily wrestled the control key from Cole's pocket, slamming him against the console. "How do we shut them down?" He gasped. "You can't. They're linked to the satellite uplink. The moment they leave this ship, the system goes global." "Then I'll cut the cord." She fired into the power conduit. Sparks exploded. The lights died. "Silence." Smoke curled through the room. Hale grabbed her arm. "We need to move." But when she looked back, Cole was gone. Only his voice lingered, echoing faintly through the dark. "You can't bury the truth forever, Ghost Falcon. The real enemy wears your uniform." They reached the deck just as the first explosion tore through the hull. Flames burst from the lower decks. The team leapt into the water as fire licked across the surface, swallowing the vessel in light. Cold hit again, the same cold she remembered from her fall over Kandahar. She surfaced, coughing, the glow of fire reflecting in her eyes. Hale swam up beside her, shouting over the roar, "You got the key." She opened her hand. The small black drive glistened in the moonlight. "Yeah," she said hoarsely, "but I don't think we stopped him." By dawn, the transport lifted them out of the sea. The ship was gone, a burning skeleton sinking into gray waves. Emily sat wrapped in a blanket, staring at the horizon, shivering not from cold but from realization. Cole was alive, and he wasn't finished. The drive in her hand might be the only proof left of what really happened, and the only weapon that could destroy him. Hale sat beside her. "You know this changes everything." She nodded. "Yeah, it means I was right." He studied her face, pale, exhausted, yet burning with something he hadn't seen before. Resolve. "What now?" he asked. She looked out toward the endless sea, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now we find out who's really flying the flag." The wind howled over the ocean, scattering the last trace of smoke. Because sometimes the battle doesn't end when you survive. It ends when you understand why you had to. Why did Admiral Donovan hesitate when he saw her step off the transport, alive? The dawn light hit the runway in pale gold as the Black Ops transport touched down. Its ramp lowered slowly, hissing steam into the morning air. The rescue crew waited in silence, unsure of what they were supposed to expect as survivors or ghosts. Then Captain Emily Hayes emerged, drenched, bruised, but standing tall. Behind her, Chief Ryan Hale and his SEAL team followed, silent as shadows. Their faces told stories the classified reports never would. The Admiral approached slowly, his crisp white uniform catching the early sun. For a second, he looked almost relieved, until his eyes dropped to the small black drive in Emily's hand. Relief turned to unease. "What the hell happened out there?" he asked quietly. Emily stopped a few feet away, meeting his gaze. "We found the ship," she said, "and someone you thought was dead." Donovan's brow furrowed. "Cole." She nodded. "He's alive, and he's behind everything." The Admiral's jaw clenched. "That's impossible. The satellite records were falsified," she cut in, "by someone inside, maybe more than one someone." For a moment the air between them felt heavy, like a line about to snap. Donovan motioned for the others to stand down. "We'll debrief in private." Inside the command center, fluorescent lights flickered over a wall of screens. The hum of machines filled the silence between them. Emily placed the drive on the table. "This was recovered from the ship's core system. If I'm right, it holds the full transmission logs of every drone strike in Sentinel's database, including the ones never approved by command." Donovan stared at it, the weight of his years etched deeper into his face. "You realize what you're accusing, Captain. These files, they could bring down people far above my pay grade." She didn't blink. "Then maybe they should fall." He turned away, packing to the window overlooking the runway. "You don't understand how deep this goes." "I understand exactly how deep," she said quietly. "I buried people at the bottom of it." The Admiral sighed. He'd seen pilots break before from pressure, from guilt, from orders too heavy to live with. But Emily Hayes was different. She wasn't breaking. She was shedding. He looked back at her. "Cole trained you, didn't he?" "Yes." "Then he knows how you think. He also knows I don't quit." A flicker of something like respect crossed his face. "What's his endgame?" She hesitated. "He thinks he's saving us by exposing the rot, but he's doing it the only way he knows how, with fire." Donovan tapped his fingers against the desk. "If what you're saying is true, he'll strike again, and next time it won't be drones." Emily's voice dropped. "No, next time it'll be people." Hours later, Emily stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at her jet. The F-22 sat silent under the hangar lights, its repairs nearly complete. She could feel it watching her, or maybe that was just memory pretending to breathe. Hale approached quietly, a mug of coffee in his hand. "Heard the Admiral tore into half the command chain," he said. "They're locking down every signal coming out of the East Coast." She nodded but didn't look up. "He's scared." "Shouldn't he be?" "Yeah," she said softly, "but not of Cole, of the truth." Hale leaned against the railing beside her. "You think Cole's right, about what he said about command selling out?" She exhaled slowly, eyes still fixed on the horizon. "I think war makes people trade pieces of themselves. Some trade honor, some trade souls, and some just stop noticing the difference." Hale studied her face, calm but haunted. "And you?" "I traded sleep." He smiled faintly, could have guessed. They stood in silence, the night wind cutting through the open deck. Then she said, almost to herself, "He knew I'd come back. He wanted me to see it." "See what?" "That the system I swore to protect was the one that killed my team." Her voice cracked just enough for Hale to look away. Not out of pity, but out of respect. Some grief wasn't meant to be watched. By midday, the Pentagon liaison arrived, a polished man in a gray suit with no name tag, carrying a silver briefcase. He greeted the Admiral with a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Captain Hayes," he said, shaking her hand just long enough to make it formal. "I've read your file, quite a story you've written these past few days." "It wasn't a story," she said. "It was a massacre." He smiled again, tighter this time. "Semantics. The department appreciates your initiative, but we'd like the recovered data returned to Central Command for analysis." Donovan frowned. "That's not protocol. Field intel stays here until authenticated." The liaison ignored him. "We'll handle authentication. Captain, the drive, please." Emily's grip tightened around the small black device in her hand. Something about his tone made her chest go cold. She met his gaze. "You already know what's on it, don't you?" He didn't answer. Donovan stepped forward, voice firm. If this data verifies what she claims, it's evidence of treason. You don't get to walk out of here with it without a warrant. The man's smile faded. You misunderstand, Admiral. I'm not asking. Two uniformed MPs entered behind him. Hale shifted instinctively, hand near his sidearm. Emily took a step back. So that's how this works, silence over truth. The liaison sighed. Captain Hayes, you've been through trauma. No one's questioning your courage, but you're not authorized to interpret classified systems. The best thing you can do now is rest. Her voice cut sharp, and let him do it again. Donovan's patience snapped. Enough, you're in my command center. You'll wait outside until I clear this. For a moment the air went still, tension thick as oil. Then, wordlessly, Emily handed the drive to Donovan, her eyes never leaving the liaison's face. You touch that file, she said softly, and you'll confirm every word I said. He gave a polite nod. I'll take that under advisement. As he turned to leave, Emily caught a faint glint on his wrist, a silver band engraved with a small emblem, the same insignia painted on the cargo ship. Her stomach dropped. Admiral, she said quickly, don't let him walk out. The liaison froze at the doorway. Excuse me. She pointed. That insignia, Project Sentinel. Donovan's eyes widened. You're one of them. The man smiled, not in denial but in victory. And now, Admiral, so are you. He pressed a button on his watch. The lights went out. A blast ripped through the far end of the building. The shockwave threw Emily backward. Glass shattered, alarms blared, smoke filled the air. Through the haze, she saw the liaison running toward the exit, the briefcase in his hand, the drive inside. Hale, she shouted, coughing, stop him. The chief sprinted after him, disappearing down the corridor. Emily stumbled to her feet, pain stabbing her ribs. The Admiral was on the floor, blood on his temple. She knelt beside him. Sir. He groaned, eyes unfocused. Get the drive. She nodded and ran. The hallway burned with red emergency lights. Smoke curled from ruptured wires. Somewhere ahead, she heard gunfire. When she reached the hangar, Hale was pinned behind a transport vehicle, exchanging fire with two armed men, both in black tactical suits, no insignias. Private contractors, he shouted. They're not Navy. Emily ducked behind a crate, returning fire with a pistol she'd taken off the floor. Sparks flew across the concrete as rounds ricocheted. Then she saw him, the liaison, slipping through the side exit, clutching the briefcase. She broke cover and ran. Bullets snapped past her ears, the roar of engines echoing off steel walls. She dove, tackled him at the doorway, both crashing hard onto the ground. The briefcase slid across the floor. They struggled, hands, elbows, desperation. He was stronger. She was faster. She slammed his wrist against the wall until the device on his watch cracked. Sparks flew. He snarled, you think this changes anything? You're already obsolete. She drove her knee into his ribs, grabbed the briefcase, and pressed the emergency lock on her comm. Control, this is Hayes. We have a breach, repeat, internal breach. Lockdown now. Static. Then a faint voice, Donovan's, weak but alive. Get out, Captain. They've taken the servers. She froze. What? The whole base compromised. The liaison smiled through bloodied lips. Told you, Captain. The system protects itself. She looked at him, then at the smoke billowing outside. Not if I burn it first. She slammed the briefcase shut, grabbed Hale by the arm, and sprinted toward the hangar doors. Behind them, another explosion tore through the upper levels. They burst into daylight as debris rained around them. The F-22 stood gleaming on the runway, patched, fueled, ready. Hale stared. You're not thinking. I am. Hayes, the skies locked down. No clearance, no support. She met his eyes. When was the last time I cared about clearance? He hesitated, then handed her his sidearm. Bring it back. She gave a ghost of a smile. No promises. He nodded once, stepping back. Ghost Falcon, he said softly, clear skies. The engines roared to life. The Raptor lifted off, slicing through the smoke into open air. Below, the base burned like a scar reopening. Emily climbed through the clouds, her breath steady, her eyes on the horizon. In her cockpit display, a signal blinked faint, encrypted, familiar. Raven 09. Cole. His voice came through, calm and almost sad. You shouldn't have interfered, Emily. You forced their hand. Her jaw clenched. You lit the match, Mason. I'm just flying through the fire. He chuckled softly. You can't stop this. You'll have to choose your country's secrets or its soul. Her voice hardened. Maybe it's time they were the same thing. Static filled the line, then silence. The horizon glowed red in the distance. A storm forming over the Atlantic, lightning slicing through the clouds like veins of light. She set her jaw, pushing the throttle forward. The jet screamed into the wind. Because sometimes you don't run from the storm. You fly straight through it. Why did the radar show friendly signatures inside the kill zone? The storm over the Atlantic rolled like a living thing, black clouds folding over each other, lightning tearing through the sky in angry veins. Captain Emily Hayes guided her F-22 through turbulence that felt like flying inside a heartbeat. The rain hit her canopy in streaks of white fire, the kind that blurred horizon and heaven into one. She wasn't just chasing a signal, she was chasing a ghost. The encrypted transmission she'd intercepted pulsed faintly on her display. Raven 09 active, coordinates classified. Each time the signal appeared, it vanished seconds later, like it was mocking her. Come on, she whispered, adjusting frequency filters, recalibrating mid-flight. Show yourself. The static shifted, forming fragments of a voice, male, calm, deliberate. This isn't about vengeance, Emily. It's about correction. Cole. Her breath caught. You're not correcting anything. You're playing God with ghosts. He didn't respond immediately, just a faint hum through the channel. Then, you never learned to see beyond the cockpit. That's why they loved you, loyal, predictable, controllable. But they don't deserve your loyalty anymore. She clenched her jaw. Then why target them? Why kill your own? I'm not killing anyone. I'm erasing a lie. The screen flickered again, a map fragment, coordinates locking in over the eastern seaboard. She zoomed in. Her stomach dropped. Norfolk Naval Command Center. She froze. That was where Admiral Donovan had evacuated personnel after the explosion. Hundreds of lives. Cole, she hissed, you're targeting Norfolk. His voice softened, almost regretful. They've been coordinating the Sentinel integration program for months. You destroy the body or the infection spreads. Those are human beings. Collateral in a war that's already lost its humanity. Her breathing grew sharp. She looked down at the flickering lights of the coastline far below, unaware, peaceful, fragile. Don't do this, she said, her voice cracking. Please. He sighed, the sound distant and weary. You still think you can save everyone. You can't even save yourself. Then the line went dead. In the command tower at Norfolk, alarms began blaring seconds later. Chief Ryan Hale stood beside Admiral Donovan as the radar operator shouted, "Inbound contact. Multiple UAVs bearing east by northeast." "How many?" Donovan demanded. "Too many to count, sir. They're using stealth protocols. Our systems can barely track them." Hale's stomach tightened. They're his, Cole. Donovan slammed his hand on the console. "Scramble interceptors. Evacuate non-essential personnel." "Already done, sir," an officer replied. "But we won't have air cover for at least 20 minutes. Donovan looked up at the sky outside the glass wall. Lightning lit up the horizon. "Then we buy ourselves 20 minutes. He grabbed the radio. "Ghost Falcon, do you copy?" A burst of static answered, then Emily's voice, breathless. "Copy. I've got the swarm in visual. 50+ contacts, high altitude, approaching fast. Hayes, those drones are heading straight for us. Do not engage alone. Already did that once, sir. Damn it, Captain. Don't waste time arguing, she cut in. Get everyone underground. I'll handle the sky. Emily. Please, sir, let me finish what I started. The radio went silent. Donovan exhaled, the sound broken. Hale looked at him. She's not coming back this time, is she? The Admiral's eyes didn't leave the storm. I don't think she ever planned to. At 30,000 feet, the swarm appeared black specks against the gray clouds, moving like a school of fish, perfectly synchronized. Her HUD lit up with target locks. 50 drones, all armed. Her hands hovered over the controls. Her breathing slowed. Come on, Ghost Falcon, she whispered to herself. One last dance. Missiles away. 2 drones vaporized in fire. Then 4. The sky erupted in chaos, trails of smoke curling through rain, radar screaming. Her F-22 rolled hard, cutting through the formation, machine guns spitting fire. Each hit echoed through her bones. Each kill made her stomach twist tighter. She wasn't celebrating. She was remembering. Over the comms, fragments of Cole's voice returned. You can't stop evolution, Emily. You can only delay it. Evolution doesn't bleed, she snapped. She dove, pulling 5 GS, missiles streaking past her canopy. The storm flashed white. Thunder rolled through her headset like artillery. Her radar screamed, too many signatures. They were overwhelming her position. Norfolk Command, she radioed. Be advised, swarm density increasing. I can't hold them all off. Donovan's voice crackled back. Then buy us time. She smiled faintly. Copy that. Her jet roared through the clouds, spinning through enemy fire like a blade through silk. The world below was just flashes of light now, city lights, base lights, lightning. Heaven and hell stitched together. One drone clipped her left wing. Warning alarms shrieked. She fought for control, pulling the stick hard right, stabilizing. Come on, baby, stay with me. The F-22 groaned under pressure but obeyed. She leveled out, fired again, 3 more down. Then silence. Her radar cleared for a heartbeat. The drones were gone. She blinked, confused. Command, I think. A new signal appeared. Larger, faster, unknown classification. Her blood went cold. That's not a drone. From the clouds emerged a modified aircraft, jet black, twice the size of her Raptor, no visible markings. It looked like something out of the future, sleek, unnatural, silent. Cole's voice came through crystal clear now. Do you like it? Project Archangel, built from Sentinel's bones, my masterpiece. Her pulse hammered. You're flying it. Who else? He said calmly. Don't make me shoot you down, Emily. Walk away. Not an option. You'll die for them, for people who buried your name, erased your record, lied to your face. She took a slow breath. No, I'll die for the ones who can't fight back. The 2 jets circled each other through the storm, predator and prey, though neither seemed sure which was which. Cole's tone softened. You think this ends with one dogfight? This is bigger than both of us. Then it's fitting it ends with both of us. She locked target. Don't, he said. She fired. The missile streaked through the clouds. The Archangel twisted, impossibly fast, dodging by inches. Return fire blazed past her cockpit, missing her canopy by feet. She rolled, dived, countered. The 2 aircraft became streaks of lightning against the storm. Below, Norfolk trembled as sonic booms cracked the air. People in bunkers looked up and whispered prayers they didn't know how to finish. Still think you can win, Cole taunted. She smiled through the sweat and fear. I already did, I came back. Then you die twice. His missile locked on. Warning alarms screamed. She jerked left, but too late. Impact near her tail. The Raptor shuddered violently, warning lights flashing red. Smoke filled the cockpit. Control systems failing, she gasped. Eject. Then she stopped herself. Her hand hovered over the ejection lever. She thought of Kandahar, of her squad, of the night she'd pulled that same lever and watched them all vanish behind fire. Not again. She grabbed the throttle, voice shaking. Not this time. She pulled the jet into a vertical climb, engines screaming in protest. The world turned to white and thunder. Emily, Cole's voice roared through the radio. You'll burn out your reactor. That's the idea. She looped over, diving straight toward the Archangel. The altitude meter spun wildly. Rain streaked past like stars. Cole realized too late what she was doing. No. The two aircraft met in a blinding flash of light. Minutes later, the storm began to clear. From the coast, the people at Norfolk watched as the clouds parted, sunlight spilling through. Debris rained into the ocean, tiny fragments glinting like falling stars. In the control tower, Donovan gripped the railing. Hale stood beside him, silent. Any signal? The Admiral asked quietly. The operator shook his head. Nothing, sir. Both aircraft off radar. Donovan closed his eyes. She did it. Hale swallowed hard. At what cost? The Admiral didn't answer. He just looked out at the horizon, voice barely above a whisper. She bought us time. Hours later, search teams scoured the wreck site. Nothing, just salt, steel, and silence. Until one diver surfaced near dusk, waving a hand. Sir, we found something. It wasn't a body. It was a helmet, cracked visor, scorched edges, initials etched on the inside, EH. Hale took it from the diver, his throat tight. He looked at Donovan. She's gone, he said quietly. The Admiral shook his head slowly. No, she's flying somewhere they can't ground her. He turned toward the fatting sun, eyes glassy. And I'll be damned if anyone buries her name again. That night the ocean was calm again. The stars reflected off the water like lights from another world. And somewhere far beyond radar, a faint transmission pulsed once, then vanished. Ghost Falcon, mission complete. The radio went silent. Because sometimes, the heroes who save the world aren't the ones who come home. They're the ones who never stopped flying toward the truth. And sometimes, courage isn't about survival. It's about choosing what's worth dying for. Why did the ocean stay silent when they called her name? For 2 days, the Atlantic kept its secrets. Search planes swept the waters in widening circles. Submersibles traced sonar grids through dark canyons of current. Nothing. No wreckage large enough to identify, no signal, no flare. Only the wind, whispering against the waves like a voice that didn't want to be found. At Norfolk Command, Admiral Donovan barely left the operations room. Every few hours, Chief Ryan Hale would bring him another report, satellite sweeps, tide drifts, thermal scans, but the answer was always the same: no contact. He stared at the empty radar screen the way a man stares at a closed grave. You'd think a legend would leave a bigger shadow, he muttered. Hale set the latest printout on the table. Maybe she did, sir, just not the kind we can see. Outside, journalists had begun gathering at the perimeter fences, hungry for explanations the Navy couldn't give. Official statements spoke of an experimental malfunction, a classified training incident, words hollow enough to hide behind. But inside the hangars, among the people who'd seen her fly, there was no need for words. The silence said everything. She was gone. 3 days later, the Pentagon sent investigators, men in pressed suits with clipped voices and eyes that never lingered too long on grief. They questioned everyone: pilots, technicians, even the janitors who'd cleaned the hangar floor that morning. Every question felt less like curiosity and more like containment. Hale sat through his interview, jaw tight. Captain Hayes intercepted a hostile drone swarm and prevented a direct strike on U.S. soil, he said for the record. That's the only reason any of us are still breathing. The lead investigator didn't look up from his tablet. And yet, there's no physical evidence of this swarm. They disintegrated in the air, Hale snapped. You want proof? Check the radiation burns on our radar systems. Chief, the man said calmly, we're not disputing your recollection. We're just ensuring the narrative aligns with departmental protocol. Hale leaned forward. You mean you're rewriting it? The investigator smiled faintly. Sometimes clarity serves the greater good. When they left, Hale punched the wall hard enough to split his knuckles. Blood dripped down his fingers, bright and real, one of the few things left that still was. That evening, the Admiral called a closed meeting. Only a handful of officers attended. He stood at the head of the table, shoulders heavier than rank could carry. They're going to bury this, he said flatly. The reports, the wreck, even her name. Project Sentinel will disappear under new funding and a cleaner title. One officer frowned. Sir, the data drive. Gone, Donovan cut in. Recovered by internal security, rerouted to DC. I doubt we'll ever see it again. The room fell quiet. So that's it, another asked. She saves the coast and they erase her. Donovan's voice cracked. Not while I'm breathing. He turned to Hale. You still have the helmet. Hale nodded. Kept it in my locker. Then keep it there, the Admiral said. For now, she stays classified. But one day, when they're ready to remember what courage looks like, we tell them. Hale met his eyes. We will, sir. Weeks passed. Norfolk rebuilt. The world moved on, at least the part that could. The pilots on base started a ritual. Every morning before first flight, one of them would place a small patch on the tarmac near Hangar 12, a silver Falcon stitched in black thread. No ceremony, no salute, just a quiet nod before takeoff. They called it the Falcon's mark. At first, Command tried to stop it. Then they realized the patches kept appearing anyway, like feathers carried by the wind. Even visiting SEAL teams started leaving them behind, on gear bags, on helmets, on walls of briefing rooms where nobody was supposed to notice. Hale once caught a new recruit tracing the patch with his finger. Who was she? The kid asked. Hale smiled sadly. Someone who taught the sky how to keep a secret. Admiral Donovan eventually returned to Washington to testify before a congressional committee. The questions were sharp, rehearsed. The answers restrained. Was Project Sentinel an authorized military program? Yes. Did Captain Hayes act within her orders? A pause. She acted within her conscience. The panel chair frowned. That's not the same thing, Admiral. Donovan leaned forward. No, sir, it's better. When the hearing ended, he walked out into the sunlight feeling lighter than he had in years. Sometimes truth didn't need a microphone. It just needed a moment of defiance. Back at Norfolk, Hale couldn't sleep. He found himself wandering to the observation deck at odd hours, watching the runway lights blink like slow heartbeats across the dark. One night around 2 a.m., he saw movement near Hangar 12, a figure in maintenance overalls placing something on the ground. He walked closer. It wasn't a patch this time. It was a small metal plate engraved with words scratched by hand. Ghost Falcon, because some ghosts never leave. Hale crouched beside it, running his fingers over the letters. You'd hate all this attention, he whispered. You just tell us to get back to work. The wind answered with a soft rush, the kind that sounds too much like a laugh. He smiled into the darkness. Yeah, thought so. Months later, reconstruction of Project Sentinel's remains moved to a secure lab in Nevada. Most files were redacted beyond use. But one engineer, an older woman with clearance few others possessed, noticed something peculiar while restoring the data network. A hidden directory, locked under an outdated encryption key. She almost deleted it, then hesitated. Curiosity won. After 3 failed attempts, the file opened. Inside, flight telemetry, radio transcripts, and one final log entry dated the day of the battle. The file name read, GF Final Com WAV. She clicked play. Static, then a woman's voice, steady, calm, almost gentle. This is Ghost Falcon. If anyone finds this, tell them it wasn't anger that brought me back. It was unfinished duty. We fly to protect what's left of the good, even when the good forgets us. If you're hearing this, keep the sky clean. Don't let them weaponize silence again. The engineer sat back, tears in her eyes. She didn't file a report. She copied the recording onto a small drive, labeled it for the ones who still believe, and slipped it into her pocket. Some truths weren't meant for archives. A year passed. The world entered another election cycle. The headlines spoke of economics, trade, anything but ghosts. But among pilots and soldiers, whispers remained. About a woman who'd flown into a storm and never come out. About the night the sky itself went to war. They said that on certain nights, radar picked up a single blip over the Atlantic, fast, silent, unresponsive. When controllers tried to hail it, a faint voice would cut through the static for half a second. "Control, this is Ghost Falcon, clear skies." Then nothing. Hale heard the story more than once. He never corrected it. Sometimes he'd sit on the tarmac after hours, helmet in his lap, staring at the horizon. He wasn't waiting for a signal, just listening to the wind, to the hum of distant engines, to the silence that somehow felt alive. He'd whisper quietly, "You did it, Captain, you stopped him." And maybe the wind would shift, brushing his cheek like a nod. On the anniversary of the battle, Admiral Donovan returned to the base. His hair had gone grayer, his walk slower, but his voice still carried command. He gathered the small group of those who'd served under her, the SEALs, the pilots, the mechanics. No speeches, no reporters, just a single flag folded neatly on the table beside her cracked helmet. Donovan looked at them, his voice low but clear. "She wasn't just a pilot. She was the reason we still remember why we fly. Courage isn't loud. It's quiet enough to be mistaken for madness until history catches up." He set the helmet beneath the flag. "Let them call her a myth. We'll call her what she was, a reminder." They saluted in silence. And as the ceremony ended, a low rumble rolled across the sky. Everyone looked up. Far above the clouds, a streak of light cut across the horizon, swift, silver, impossible. No one spoke. Hale smiled, barely whispering, "Clear skies, ma'am." That night Donovan sat alone in his quarters, writing his report, the one that would never be filed. He ended it the only way that felt right. "She taught us that honor isn't obedience, it's memory. And sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts." He closed the folder, sealed it, and placed it in his drawer marked Personal Ghost Falcon. Then he looked out the window at the stars and said quietly, "Rest easy, Captain. You made them remember." The wind outside shifted again, rattling the blinds, whispering through the room like the sound of wings. And somewhere far beyond radar, a ghost kept flying, guarding the silence she'd once broken. Because legends don't end. They simply rise higher. Why did the cadet pause when she read the name, Ghost Falcon, in a file that wasn't supposed to exist? 10 years had passed. The world had changed, but not enough. The new Atlantic Defense Academy gleamed on the same coastline where Norfolk once burned. Its glass towers caught the morning sun like polished blades. Drones flew lazy circles overhead, automated and obedient, their sound as common as the tide. Most of the cadets who trained here had never flown anything without an AI co-pilot. Except one. Lieutenant Ava Reyes, 23, half her hair always tucked beneath a flight cap, eyes too old for her age. She, grown up on base housing, listening to stories whispered by her father, a mechanic who'd once served under Admiral Donovan. He never told her much, only fragments. A storm, a woman, a jet that never came home. Ava had chased those fragments all her life. Now standing in the simulation bay surrounded by holographic aircraft, She watched the screen flash error, pilot override required. The instructor barked, "Reyes, you disabled autopilot again." "Yes, sir. That system's there for a reason." "I know, sir. I just wanted to feel the wind again." He frowned, muttered something about relics of the old Air Force, and walked away. She smiled faintly. Relics, maybe, but relics built the sky you're standing under. That evening, Ava slipped into the archives, a quiet wing beneath the academy where no one went except historians and ghosts. The digital catalog glowed faint blue. She typed a phrase she'd heard only once, whispered by her father when he thought she was asleep. "Ghost Falcon." At first, nothing. Then a single restricted file appeared, hidden behind layers of encryption older than the academy itself. She bypassed the first lock easily, the second took longer. The third asked for a clearance code. She hesitated, then entered her father's old service number. "Access granted." The screen filled with images, burned wreckage, radar maps, flight telemetry from a decade ago, and then a voice file. Her hand shook as she pressed play. "This is Ghost Falcon. If anyone finds this, tell them it wasn't anger that brought me back. It was unfinished duty." Ava froze. The voice was calm, warm, human. It didn't sound like a ghost at all. It sounded like truth. Footsteps echoed behind her. She turned. A tall man stood in the doorway, gray-haired, posture rigid, even in civilian clothes. "Admiral Donovan," she breathed. He smiled faintly. "Retired technically, and you are trespassing technically." "I'm sorry, sir, He raised a hand. "Relax, Lieutenant. Curiosity isn't a crime, it's how legends survive." She looked back at the screen. Was she real? His eyes softened. More real than most of the uniforms that came after her. Why isn't she in the history books? He sighed. Because truth scares people who build their power on myths, and because she never wanted to be remembered that way. But she saved this coast. He nodded, and they buried her for it, said the incident never happened, easier that way. Ava frowned. "Then why keep the file at all?" "So someone like you could find it," he said. They walked through the dim hall together, the hum of old servers filling the silence. "Sir," Ava asked quietly, "what was she like?" Donovan stopped at a window overlooking the runway. The night air smelled of jet fuel and sea salt, same as the day she'd first walked toward him all those years ago. "She was quiet," he said. "Not shy, just deliberate. Every word she spoke felt like she'd tested it against eternity first, and when she flew, the sky stopped arguing with itself." Ava smiled faintly. "Sounds impossible." He chuckled. "That's what we all said, then she did it anyway." He turned to her. "Why are you looking for her, Lieutenant?" "Because I think we forgot what it means to be human up there. Everything's automated now. Decisions, targets, even fear. But when I heard her voice," Ava swallowed hard. "She sounded alive, not programmed." Donovan studied her, a mix of pride and worry in his eyes. "You remind me of her." "I'm not that brave." "Neither was she," he said softly. "Not until she had to be." 2 weeks later, Ava received an unmarked envelope in her locker. Inside, an old dog tag, half-melted, fused at the edges, the engraving unreadable, and a handwritten note. "Hangar 12, midnight, no cameras." She knew better than to go. She went anyway. The hangar was dark, empty except for one shape under a tarp. She pulled the cover back and gasped. An F-22 Raptor, the same model she'd only seen in training hollows, its paint scorched, the tail number gone. But across the nose, one word remained faintly visible under dust and time: ghost. Her hand trembled as she touched the metal, cold, real. A voice from the shadows said, "You found her." Ava turned. It was Chief Ryan Hale, older now, a scar deeper, eyes tired but kind. "She shouldn't be here," Ava whispered. Hale smiled. "That's what they said the first time, too." He walked closer, running his hand along the fuselage like a man greeting an old friend. We kept her hidden after the investigation. Couldn't stand the thought of her being scrapped by the same people who erased her name. Does it still fly? Ava asked. Barely, he said. But every year we power her up just to remind ourselves she's not gone. Ava looked up at the cockpit. Can I sit in it? He hesitated, then nodded. Go ahead, she'd like that. She climbed the ladder, slipped into the seat. The controls felt worn, molded by the memory of another pilot's hands. She closed her eyes. And then she heard it, faint, through the static of the old comm panel, like a ghost signal trapped in the metal. Control, this is Ghost Falcon, clear skies. Ava's eyes flew open. Did you hear that? Hale's voice softened. Yeah, happens sometimes when the wind hits the antenna just right. But she could tell he didn't believe that. Not really. She looked down at him. Why are you showing me this? Because Donovan's dying, he said quietly. And before he goes, he wants her story told the right way. Ava nodded slowly. Then I'll tell it. No, Hale said. You'll finish it. She frowned. What do you mean? He tossed her a small metal case. Inside, an encrypted data drive, old and dented. The last copy of her flight logs, he said. The world thinks Project Sentinel is gone. It is. The same people who tried to bury her are rebuilding it under a new name. They're calling it Archangel II. Ava felt her pulse quicken. Autonomous strike fleet. Exactly. And they're testing it right here next month. You're the only pilot on base who still knows how to fly without an AI leash. Think that's coincidence? She stared at the jet, at the faint word across its nose. Ghost. No, she said softly, it's not. The following days blurred into preparation. She studied the logs, memorized telemetry, cross-checked every system of the Raptor until she could hear its heartbeat in her sleep. Each night she'd return to the hangar, running her hands along the wings, whispering to the silence. You saved them once. Help me do it again. Sometimes the comm panel would crackle faintly, like it wanted to answer. By the time of the Archangel II demonstration, the sky above the base shimmered with silver drones, perfect, obedient, soulless. Government officials lined the observation deck, applauding the future of warfare. Ava watched from below, helmet under her arm, heart heavy. When the countdown began, she whispered, "Not again." She climbed into the Raptor. Engines coughed, then roared to life, a sound older, rougher, truer than anything else on that runway. Technicians shouted. Commanders yelled orders. She ignored them all. The jet rolled forward, faster, faster, until the ground fell away. She rose into the clouds like a ghost reborn. Control channels flooded with panic. Unidentified aircraft respond. You are not authorized for flight. Ava smiled. Neither was she. Lightning flared in the distance, just like that night 10 years ago. And for a heartbeat, she thought she saw another shape flying beside her, faint, translucent, keeping pace. Ghost Falcon, she whispered, clear skies. The voice came back through static, calm, distant, familiar. Finish it. And then the clouds closed around her, and the sky belonged to the living again. Because some legends don't rest in peace. They rest in purpose. And sometimes, destiny doesn't wait for permission. It waits for someone brave enough to take the controls. Why did the sky look exactly the same the day the legend returned? The clouds over the Atlantic stretched wide in silver, a mirror of the day Captain Emily Hayes vanished a decade ago. But this time, a different pilot cut through them. Lieutenant Ava Reyes gripped the stick of the ancient F-22 Raptor, the same aircraft that once bore the call sign Ghost Falcon. The cockpit shook as she climbed through the upper layers of cloud, engine growling in defiance against modern silence. Below her, hundreds of Archangel II drones formed a perfect formation, silver specks glinting in the light. Autonomous, precise, heartless. And deep inside the control tower, the new generation of commanders smiled proudly at their creation. The crowd applauded, the politicians nodded, and the system prepared to repeat history. Ava's voice broke through the comms like a ghost cutting through static. "Control, this is Raptor 1. You're about to lose control of your own sky." Gasps filled the command room. Someone shouted, "Who authorized this pilot?" No one answered, because some flights don't ask permission. Inside the control tower, Chief Ryan Hale stood beside Admiral Donovan's empty chair, the chair no one dared occupy since he passed 3 months ago. Hale watched the radar flicker with disbelief. "She's doing it," he murmured. A young officer beside him whispered, "Sir, should we scramble intercepts?" Hale's lips curved faintly. "Against her, son, we don't have a sky big enough." At 40,000 feet, the AI swarm began to shift, recognizing the intruder. Their systems locked on her aircraft instantly. Ava took a deep breath. "Okay, Ghost, let's see what you left me." Her thumb hovered over a toggle switch marked Manual Override, Restricted. She flipped it. The old system's word to life, lights flickering, code scrolling across her HUD. A secondary control network unfolded from deep within the plane's operating core. It wasn't part of the F-22's original design. It was older, hidden, hand-coded. Emily Hayes' secret. Ava whispered, "You knew they'd build it again, didn't you?" The Raptor's computer beeped once, like a heartbeat. Then her screen lit up with a new icon, Sentinel sublink detected, access granted. She had a way in. Down below, the control tower erupted in chaos. "Sir, the Raptor's accessing the Archangel network." "How?" I don't know. She's overriding the entire swarm." On every monitor, the drone's formation began to falter. Their synchronized lines broke apart, circling unpredictably. Commanders shouted over each other. Hale watched quietly, his hands clasped behind his back. "Looks like she found the ghost in their machine." In the cockpit, Ava's breathing slowed. Her visor reflected lines of code, Emily's code, threading into the swarm like veins of light. The system began transmitting fragments of old data, coordinates, mission logs, voice files. "Project Sentinel is compromised. Civilian targets designated as test zones. Command authorization, Raven 09. Ava's eyes widened. "Cole," she whispered. Even from the grave, his design had survived, weaponized again under a cleaner name. She transmitted to all open frequencies. "This is Lieutenant Ava Reyes, calling all networks. The Archangel II program is built on a classified system called Project Sentinel, responsible for illegal strikes a decade ago. You are flying a weapon born from treason." Her words cut through static, through denial, through protocol. Across the Atlantic network, screens began flashing red. Unauthorized data broadcast DETECTED. Commanders yelled, "Shut her down, cut her feed." But she was already too deep. Emily's code had built a backdoor they didn't know existed, a living memory of rebellion. "Come on, Ghost," Ava whispered, fingers flying over the controls. "Guide me through this." The drones began to lock back onto her, defensive algorithms flaring. Missiles armed, targeting reticles closing. She pushed the throttle forward, diving toward the formation. "If you're going to end me," she muttered, "you're coming down with me." The Raptor sliced through the center of the swarm, triggering proximity sensors. Explosions flared around her like stars going supernova. Through the chaos, a faint voice crackled through the comms, calm, steady, timeless. "Fly true, Lieutenant." Ava froze. The voice wasn't a recording. It was live. "Emily," she breathed. No answer, only static, fatting into the hum of the storm. But something in her chest steadied. She smiled faintly. "Copy that." Back on the ground, Hale watched the monitors light up with fire. One by one, drones vanished from radar, not shot down but deactivated mid-flight. "Sir," a technician shouted. "She's shutting them off manually. She's rewriting the AI in real time." Hale whispered to himself, "She's finishing it." "Sir." He looked up. "She's doing what Ghost Falcon started." Inside the cockpit, alarms screamed. The aircraft shuddered under stress. Ava's left display flickered out. Oxygen warning, fuel critical. She kept flying. One last override sequence scrolled across the screen. System purge in progress, 90% complete. Almost there. Then a missile clipped her wing. The jet spun violently. Her head slammed against the seat. Blood filled her mouth. "Come on, come on." She fought the spin, forcing the nose up, fighting gravity itself. The clouds tore open below, the ocean glinting like dark glass. Her HUD flashed, purge complete broadcast sent. Every Archangel II unit on Earth went dark. The sky went quiet. Ava exhaled shakily, laughter and tears mixing in the same breath. We did it. But the jet was falling, fast. She reached for the ejection lever and froze. Her hand hovered there, trembling. Then softly through the comms, that same voice whispered again. "You did enough, Lieutenant, come home." Her eyes filled with tears. "I will." She pulled the lever. The canopy blew. The parachute opened against the backdrop of sunrise, her small figure descending as the Raptor dove into the ocean, vanishing in a plume of light. The legend ended where it began, in silence and sea. Days later, headlines filled the networks. Whistleblower pilot exposes defense corruption. Archangel II shutdown linked to classified legacy program. Heroic sacrifice averts global crisis. Reyes survived with a broken shoulder and a dozen unanswered questions. The investigation that followed cracked open 10 years of buried lies. Officials resigned. Contracts dissolved. And in the quiet spaces where real soldiers still spoke from the heart, a new phrase was born. "Fly clean, fly Falcon." Months later, Ava stood on the same tarmac where Emily once walked toward Admiral Donovan. The air smelled the same, jet fuel and ocean salt and ghosts. A memorial stood there now, a steel falcon's wing engraved with 2 names. Captain Emily Hayes, Ghost Falcon. LT, Ava raised the Falcon's echo. Hale approached from behind, hands in his pockets. "You did what none of us could," he said quietly. Ava smiled. "No, I just listened to her." He looked up at the sky. "Do you ever wonder where she went?" Ava shook her head. "No, I know." He raised a brow. "Where?" She nodded upward. "Everywhere." That night, the wind over the Atlantic picked up again. The same wind that once carried 2 voices across a war-torn frequency. A radar technician working the late shift at a coastal tower glanced at his screen. "That's weird," he muttered. A single blip had appeared, high altitude, unregistered, moving faster than any known jet. He picked up his headset. "Unidentified aircraft, please identify." A faint voice came through, crackling through the years. "Control, this is Ghost Falcon. The sky's yours now." Then the signal vanished. The technician sat back slowly, whispering, "Clear skies, ma'am." Outside, thunder rolled softly over the water, but no rain fell. Only the sound of something unseen, moving through the clouds, the echo of courage, the whisper of legacy. Because legends don't end where their story does. They end where someone else dares to begin. And sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply flies.